afternoon, everyone. We're here for the October 22nd, 2019 iteration of the BMZA for the 1 p.m. docket. Apologize for the time that it took to get us out here. A lot of matters to discuss. To begin, just like we always do, ask you to turn off all your cell phones, keep talking to a minimum. Of course, it disturbs the proceedings, but as you all know, the proceedings are being recorded by audio and visually. So if you need to have a discussion, feel free to step out in the hall and do so. The board will vote on each case and make a decision at the end of today's docket. If you would like to see or participate by watching in a civics lesson, feel free to stay. And you may hear a decision at the end of the day. Otherwise, you can call the BMZA office tomorrow morning after 9 a.m. The number is 410-396-4301. Again, that's 410-396-4301. Generally, you will receive your resolution in the mail within about 30 days of the hearing. We ask, as always, that you please do not do any work until your resolution is received, and by all means, do not do any work in Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. We believe there may be some postponements today, but before we get to all those postponements, let me also raise the issue that is presented by the fact that we have 3 board members present today. Because there are only 3 board members, the vote to approve any application must be unanimous. We all must agree. If anybody does not agree, then that application will not be granted, cannot be approved. And because that is a significant consequence, our rule is if you only have 3 board members, either party may have the right or does have the right to postpone this proceeding going forward today because it will require unanimous consent. So, of course, the applicant has the ability to request a postponement, but also in this case, the opposition has a right to request a postponement because of that unanimous consent rule. So, that being said, as a preliminary matter, if there's anyone here who intends to request or would like a postponement, could you please raise your hand and come forward and we can deal with those cases. All right. Mr. Woolman?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon, sir.
Board. I actually have 2 matters on today's docket that I'd like to request a postponement.
Yes, sir. I understand 2018-452.
Yes.
1743 North Washington Street. Why don't we just take them one at a time?
Sure.
1743 North Washington Street, and this is a request to use first floor as a grocery store. You are seeking a postponement for that matter?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is there any opposition here, by the way, for that matter? Doesn't.
Mr. Terrell?
Okay.
He raised.
Oh, who's that? Oh, got it.
See you.
Okay. All right, very well. The request for postponement haven't been heard. No objection, but again, it's of right. That postponement is granted. 2018-452 is postponed. If your case is postponed, this is for the group, please call the office to reschedule your case. That same number that I gave out previously, 410-396-4301. Okay, and if you are the opposition to any postponed case, make sure you've signed in so the BMZA staff can let you know when the case, the date to which it was rescheduled. All right, Mr. Woolman, we also have, I understand, case number 2019-349.
Correct.
Okay, that is 598 West Patapsco Avenue, and that case, you're seeking to use portions of the premises for temporary storage of used and damaged operable and inoperable automobiles, trucks, other vehicles, trailers, and construction equipment for wholesale online auctions. Okay, is there any opposition to that case? 2019-349? But again, you're here to request a postponement?
Yes, I am.
Okay, given the rule that I stated previously, that postponement will be granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I mentioned, obviously, we've been talking a little bit about opposition. And we do have some cases, as many of you know, that have opposition presented today. We find it helpful often for applicants to meet with their opposition before the board hears your case. I know some of these larger matters that may have already occurred. But if you are here in opposition to a matter and you haven't had an opportunity to speak with the applicant, one, could you raise your hand or stand up and identify yourself? Because we'd like to give you an opportunity to have that discussion. Sometimes it can prove fruitful, and you can come to a meeting of the minds. Is there anyone here for opposition who has not had an opportunity to speak and would like to do so with the other side? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move on. With regard to those cases for which there is opposition, when I call that case, the applicant should stand to my left, the opposition to the right of me. The applicant will speak, and then the opposition will have an opportunity to respond, and then the applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal. They will have the last word. We don't do sir rebuttals and sir replies and things like that. We have to end it with the applicant, the opposition, and then the applicant. So before we get to the regular docket, we're going to call the cases for which the board has concluded that we have sufficient information to grant your request. And when I call the case number, please line up to my left, one behind the other, and then we will call you to the podium. I'll call the case. Well, everybody will be sworn in first, but then I'll call each case individually, and then we will deal with your consent matter. Those matters are as follows. Case number 2019-246, 921 North Crescent Street, Kristen Trujillo. Next case on our consent docket is 2019-347, 1515 Covington Street, Edmund Curry. That will be followed by 2019-348, 4502 Keswick Road, Tamir Esat. And we also have case number 2019-353, 4419 Rasp Avenue, Kenneth Hughes. Also the case of 2019-356, 2636 West North Avenue, AB Associates. 2019-357, 225 East Montgomery Street, David Caravan. And finally, 2019-360, 1701 Marshall Street, Josh Resnick.
Y'all raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. We will start with case number 2019-246, 921 North Crescent Street, Kristen Trujillo. Okay, if you wouldn't mind stepping in front of the microphone. Mr. Trujillo, this is a request to construct a one-story rear addition. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Mr. Trujillo, is there anything you'd like to add to your application? Okay. Well, the board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Case number 2019-347, 1515 Covington Street, Edmund Curry, and I think you're probably not
I'm
Edmund
his
Curry.
wife.
Okay.
Megan Miles.
I'm sorry?
Megan Miles. I'm his wife.
Okay, Ms. Miles. And this is a request to construct a three-story rear addition. Is that correct? Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Baltimore Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Miles, do you have anything you'd like to add to the application? Okay. Well, the board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you. Case number 2019-348, 4502 Keswick Road, Tamir Esat.
That's me. Yep.
Okay, wonderful. This is a request to construct a two-story rear addition and use premises as a single-family live-work dwelling. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Esat, is there anything else you'd like to add to your application?
Nope.
Okay, again, the board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
2019-353, 4419 Rasp Avenue. Mr. Kenneth Hughes?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to construct a carport on the side of the house?
Yes.
All right. Do we have any staff reports?
Baltimore Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay. Just 1 second. Mr. Hughes, is there anything you'd like to add to your application?
No, sir.
Okay. I do understand that this carport has already been constructed.
Yes.
Any reason why? Without,
The guy who did the driveway and everything, the only permits we spoke about was for the driveway, and he said because the lip is already existing and we're not expanding it, we don't need to pull a permit. And then we just went into the rest of the work. I just trusted his expertise. I mean, ignorance isn't an excuse, but I learned a lot since then. And read up on permits and everything.
and you promise not to do that again.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we appreciate that and appreciate your candor. The board, having heard your appeal, Mr. Hughes, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you, sir. Case number 2019-356, 2636 West North Avenue. AB Associates, also known as Mr. Nate Pruddle today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to construct a new four-story mixed-use building with 65 dwelling units and 66 parking spaces. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Pruddle, is there anything you'd like to add to your presentation?
Sure. I'd just like to add that I'm here with James Riggs, who is with the developer Osprey Development, as well as the manager of the Walbrook Mill Apartments, which is already under construction, and this request is really just a technical request to clear up some variances which were maybe not part of the original building permit application.
Okay, wonderful. Would you like to be heard, sir?
Nothing else to add.
Oh, very well. All right, well, the board, having heard your appeal, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project. 225 East Montgomery Street, David Caravan. Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to replace the existing rooftop deck with a new rooftop deck that includes a trellis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add to your applications?
No.
No? All right. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And finally, 1701 Marshall Street. Did I call this? Josh Resnick? Not here. Mr. Resnick, construct two-story rear addition, a new third floor. Going once, going twice. I can see that consent sailing down the river. All right. It's a no-show. We'll move on to the regular docket. Yes. I'm not going to go in the order that we're there for the first couple. All righty. First case we're going to call on the regular docket is case number 2019-346, 10-30 West North Avenue, presented by the North Avenue Market LLC.
Morning.
Good afternoon.
Or good afternoon, sorry. I'm Nicole Folks. I'm the attorney representing the applicant. Folks.
Miss, I'm sorry, your last name again?
Folks.
Folks?
Folks.
This is a request to add live entertainment to existing restaurant to portion known as 30 West North Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Yes, we have letters from Charles North Community Association, Station North Arts District, Innovative Fund in Film and Media at John Hopkins, Joe Square Pizza, and the Central Baltimore Partnership, indicating that they are in favor of the request. We also have received a copy of what's usually referred to as an MOU, or an agreement between the operator and the community, and the applicant's explanation of how they're going to run the business. Does planning have anything?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Department of Planning has reviewed this application and recommends approval, subject to these conditions, in addition to any conditions which the board might establish. A copy of the use and occupancy permit for the premises must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. A copy of the written approval by the board of the live entertainment provided on the premises, including details of any restrictions or limitations on the live entertainment provided, must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. and a copy of all other permits and licenses required to the written approval of the board must be kept on the premises and available for inspection by representatives of Baltimore City at all times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Ms. Folks, if the board were to be favorably disposed towards your application, are those conditions acceptable to your client?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Can you tell us about your project?
Well, before I start, I'd like to also add into the record a letter of support from Councilman Stokes from the 12th District.
Certainly.
He has written that letter in support of my applicant's proposal to put live entertainment at the existing restaurant. It's okay with you? I'll read it into the record.
That'd be fine.
Okay. It's addressed both to the BMZA and the Liquor Board because of the pending Liquor Board application. So approval for live entertainment at 30 West North Avenue. When communities seek to revitalize and reinvent themselves, good sound businesses are key to the success and future growth of those endeavors. The North Avenue Market is a business that is deeply invested in the community, and the owner has a long history and deep love for and the understanding of the people who live near North Avenue. Recent developments such as the Motor House, Center Theater, and the Parkway are examples of a positive future. The North Avenue Market will be a welcomed and highly anticipated addition to the Station North community, and I am excited to support the application for live entertainment with dancing. Sincerely, Robert Stokes.
Very well. Anything else?
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the property, because this is a historic property that you're probably already familiar with. It's on North Avenue in between Maryland Avenue and Charles Street. It's part of that revitalization area where we're seeing a lot of exciting growth, a lot of really positive change in that area. Definitely was needed there. The market, the entirety of the market, it was one of those old food markets that we know that used to exist in Baltimore. First opened up in 1928, so it has a really deep history. In recent years, it's had a print shop put in there. It has the Made in Baltimore shop put into the market building. It has a tavern called Rituals. It used to be the wind-up space. Now it's Rituals. And now there was Red Emma's there on the corner. Red Emma's left approximately a year ago. So that is the space that my client would be bringing the live entertainment. The restaurant is there as the North Avenue Market.
Questions. I'm super excited that they're doing this. I think it's great. I love that area. How late will the live entertainment go?
Well, we have an MOU with the Charles North Community Association, so he would abide by the times in the MOU.
Do you know what they are? I'm just curious because I see in your security plan that staff is going to be there until 2 a.m. So I just want to make sure that there's plenty of time, that the staff are there for ample time after the entertainment has stopped, because oftentimes people don't leave right away. And then the only other question I had, and then I'll let you address both questions, was about cameras. Do you have security cameras on site now?
There are cameras outside and inside. It's
And
correct to say they are inside.
Are operational and active?
Yes.
I'll let Mr. Schechter see, he's the owner of the place. But yes, my understanding is that there are cameras both on the exterior and in the interior of the premises. The MOU, hopefully you have a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding. It's dated October 14th, 2019, between the North Avenue Market LLC and the Charles North Community Association. And it's in Section 1A, the restricted hours. And they agreed, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, no later than 1 a.m. being open, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday being open no later than 2 a.m. So that's already in their agreement.
Ask that your security plan be, I mean, we can talk about it as a group at the end, but I think the board will likely recommend that you have your security stay past 2 a.m. if the music is ending at 2.
Is a half hour adequate to the board?
I mean, I think an hour is probably the safest,
Okay.
only because sometimes it
Okay with
takes
that?
people a while to leave.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, in your application, you indicate that the live entertainment or proposed dancing will go till 2 a.m. I mean, everything, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday.
But you're saying that it's amended to reflect the agreement that you made with the neighborhood?
Correct.
Yeah,
All right, okay.
Correct, so we can change the security plan to include the added precaution of keeping the security there.
And the
Yeah.
active cameras at all.
They're 24/7.
Oh.
So I gotta make sure that.
Yeah.
Just raise your right hand, everybody. if you can
Oh,
testify.
gee, sorry.
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing. You're not sworn in, you're stricken.
If I may continue about the MOU, in section 1E, there's the security section, and that does talk about exterior cameras and lighting, and they have to be functioning during operating hours, but as Mr. Schechter just said, they're operating 24/7.
Excellent.
So they're more than what the MOU asked for. And that's what they have under security, providing the security to make sure there's no loitering on North Avenue or Maryland Avenue, since the property is at that corner. Just no disturbing of the peace or trespassing on adjacent property, no drinking beer, wine, or liquor on the sidewalk or anywhere outside of the property. So that was part of the community's conditions with the MOU.
Great.
Okay.
And, sorry, we hadn't seen the MOU prior to you beginning, but we've seen it now.
Okay.
And thank you for bringing our attention to it.
Thank you. Okay, so the, meeting the conditions for conditional use approval for live entertainment at the restaurant, with the live entertainment being accessory to the primary use of the restaurant. The proposed use will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, security, or welfare. The applicant is requesting to bring live entertainment to the Station North Arts and Entertainment District. So it is an area designated by the city for this exact purpose. It promotes the public interest of having a thriving commercial corridor along North Avenue, as well as a thriving entertainment district. And all precautions are being made by the applicant to comply with the city's noise ordinance. And they are, actually, I should ask you, as far as the, Mr. Schechter, as far as the noise abatement, as far as the noise ordinance, of noise abatement at the premises, do you want to give us a description of the specific measures you have done? Mr. Michael Schechter. Give a summary of the noise abatement actions you've done at the property to date.
Yeah, there's
You want to talk in the mic?
foam insulation in the ceilings and insulated windows and other foam in the walls. So it's pretty cut and dry.
Okay. And as part of the MOU with the community, they've agreed to keep windows and doors closed during performances to also abate the noise from coming out. They have a security plan, which is in the record as well. Hopefully you've seen that. That will be amended to add on the additional cushion at the end of the any kind of event, live entertainment event.
And I would add the security camera, because it's not mentioned in the, even though you have them, it isn't mentioned.
Okay, we have it in the MOU, but we can put that in the security plan as well. Not a problem, because it's already being done. Okay, and so for these reasons, we're saying that it meets that condition of being, not being detrimental or endangering the public health, security, or welfare of the city. The proposed use is not precluded by any other law, including any applicable urban renewal plan. I want to bring up the MOU again with the Charles North Community Association, because the Charles North Community Association is the organization that manages the urban renewal plan with the planning department. And they've entered into that MOU that has set forth the terms that are more stringent than what are required otherwise by the zoning code. And the MOU with the Charles North Community Association, it supports the goals of the Charles North Urban Renewal Plan. So the use is in line with the urban renewal plan, and it's not precluded by any other law in the city. The proposed use is not contrary to the public interest. Applicant is bringing a unique service with a diner-style restaurant, which also includes an array of video games. And I chuckled when I called them 1980s vintage, because that really dates me, because I played these games as a teenager. But it's those types of games that were very popular in the 80s, and then new games that are being developed now that, you know, this is the only place in Baltimore City where these consoles are located. And so bringing that type of, the arcade as a destination for that community that enjoys the video games, both the older ones and the newer ones, games and people. And then also providing the live entertainment while there's that arcade. There's nothing like this in the area. So it's bringing a unique service. It's also filling a void from the last restaurant that left, and so filling a vacant space. And it's just bringing it into making it an attraction for people. And they have the capacity to host events like video game competitions, just things that bring people to Baltimore, and that's what we like to see. And they hope to attract patrons not just in the immediate area. They want to be that destination of, I want to go see live entertainment there. I want to go check out this arcade. I want to go to this restaurant because some good food. And then I know we haven't talked about everybody here, but Matt Steinberg down there is he's one of the owners of the Secret Sauce Company, and you may be familiar with the ketchups and hot sauces that Secret Sauce is making in the city now. And Secret Sauce will be working in partnership with the owner of North Avenue Market to provide a special menu that's guided by Secret Sauce's ingredients. And so he's here obviously in support of the application. And so the Secret Sauce is another attraction because, Matt, this will be the only place and you need to come up here and speak into the mic if you're going to answer my question. But this will be the only place in the city where there's a Secret Sauce menu, correct? Yeah, there you go.
Yes, this will be the only place that has a dedicated menu that's going to be used as a vehicle for our future sauces. We're going to use it as a laboratory to be able to test out some of the new creations on the community right in front of us.
We're happy to try them here as well, if you like.
Excellent.
Next time.
And then lastly, the proposed use is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the city's zoning code. The code allows for the restaurant at this location, and so we're now requesting that the live entertainment is added, so we can put that in the use and occupancy permit, bringing the unique service to the neighborhood, thereby filling the void that is currently in place. And by filling this void, the proposed use will contribute to the promotion of the stability and the desirability of the commercial strip along North Avenue. And so based on the foregoing, we respectfully request that approval is granted for the live entertainment conditional use request.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
No, good.
No questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next case to be called on the regular docket is case number 2019-343, 6401 through 6501 East Lombard Street. J. Lee, to use portion of premises as a mini warehouse.
Mr. Lee,
Yes, sir.
raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Afternoon, Mr. Lee. Okay, well, we've established this is a request to use a portion of the premises as a mini warehouse. Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lee, you were here before us not long ago for the golf range live entertainment, correct? And so now you're seeking to place mini warehouses on the property?
Yes, total my acreage is 9 acres.
Yes, sir.
3 acres on the side, we don't using it. That's why looking for.
Okay, so you're not gonna hit golf balls, listen to music, and then go take a nap in the mini
No.
warehouse right there?
Yes, here is the tee box here. This corner man, yes, we don't using it. Everybody shooting this way. This corner man.
So you're suggesting that's going to be a, basically a portion of the property will be
Right.
devoted to this warehouse storage? And are we talking about a traditional warehouse storage, mini storage?
I don't know yet. I'm gonna contact the steel company. They have pre-made the building. So I don't have any detail plan yet.
Okay, let me just take a look here.
Have you started construction on the,
Let him, just so your question is clear, construction on the,
warehouse portion?
I don't touch anything. See. I have to go prove here first.
okay. Let me ask you, Mr. Baumgartner.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen the plans for where the warehouses are to be located?
Yes.
And
From my recollection of the plans, they mirror the applicants. This is a very large area. It's surrounded by kind of an industrial/office complex portion of Baltimore City. I believe the area that is in question is just open grass or field. It might be on a slope as well. I can't recall off the top of my head.
Yeah, little slope.
But it's a large expanse of empty, unimproved land.
Okay, and, let's see, so golf range. Is there a requirement that the mini warehouses be used as an accessory to another portion of the property?
That would be correct. So any, in this particular zoning district, a mini warehouse use would have to be accessory to authorized uses on that lot. So they'd have to be accessory to the golf range or the live entertainment. The code would not permit a standalone use for a mini storage warehouse or a portion of the property for mini storage units.
So we have a different entrance. There's driving range here. The back, we have the some, we have one road is there. So
I understand the different entrance. I think what Mr. Baumgartner is pointing out is that there needs to be some connection between the use of the mini warehouse storage and the business that you'll be operating otherwise on the property. There's some connection, because what it sounds like is you'll have the golf, the driving range, the simulated portion that we've talked about previously, the live entertainment, but then we have a separate warehouse business. Is that what you're proposing? Because
right, it's totally different office. Separate the line like that one.
Okay, well, that's the trouble that I'm having, because the code requires that there be some connection between the two, that it be accessory. What it is you want, wishing to add now, the mini warehouses, be some type of accessory to something else that you're doing. Can you explain to me how it is the mini warehouse storage units will be an accessory to the golf driving range or live entertainment, particularly when they're set apart as far as you indicated?
Yes, my plan is to make two separate some office and advance the some between the property like that. It's very
Okay, so just so, put this in a nutshell, you're proposing basically to operate a separate mini storage business
right,
on the property.
right,
You're also proposing to, as you've gotten approval for previously,
right.
the golf range, the simulated electronic portion of it, and live entertainment.
Right.
But there's no connection between those two. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's all.
All righty. Thank you, sir, for your
If
presentation.
possible, I can park boat too.
I'm sorry?
BOAT. Somebody asked to park the boat. But I
Park a
don't know.
boat?
Yeah.
That would be a separate application.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Separate application and
Okay.
another demonstration that you have to make
Okay,
of how that
fine.
boat ties to the driving range.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's park a boat.
You needed the map. I give it to you.
You may
need it?
have that.
You have it.
Well, I think this is a portion of, we may have this already in our,
Yes.
we can keep this one if you like. Do you need it back? Very well. Thank you for your presentation, sir. Okay.
Who's the next contestant?
Okay. Calling the case of 2019-171, 5006 Bel Air Road, Victorious Mental Health Care, to use the entire premises as offices.
Hi, how you doing?
Good afternoon. Your name, ma'am?
Bosadedo.
I'm sorry. I need you to step up or speak up so that we can hear you.
Bosadedo. I'm nervous. B-O-S-E-D-A. B-O-S-E-D-A. I-D-O-W-U.
IDOWU.
Yes, sir.
I guess we can swear her. Do you swear that?
Raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have any staff reports?
Yes, we have the same July 26, 2019 letters from both Waltherson Improvement Association and Harbell indicating that they are in opposition, but before they would actually confirmed that position, they would want to meet with the applicant and ask that the case be postponed until such meeting could occur. Has such meeting occurred?
Yeah, the meeting occurred. I postponed it and I went to see them, and they let me know what the neighbors will not like to see, like the light sign, the use of parking lot, and I let them know that there's no parking lot in front of the building, and there's actually no parking in front of the building. So everything that they share with me, what the neighbor, that they don't want to see the blinking light of the sign, and I agree. And they want to know if I'll be using the whole building. And I told them it's possibility I might be using the whole building or rent the second floor.
Okay. So the request is to use the entire premises as offices.
Yes, that's what
What kind
I'm
of
doing.
offices are you intending to utilize?
PRP office. It's PRP, Psychiatric Rehabilitation Service.
So psychiatric offices now.
Rehabilitation services.
Okay, is it your intent to perform the rehabilitation services at this
It
location?
will be in the community, but staff members will be in the office.
Where in the community are the services being
It
rendered?
might be in at school, recreation places.
Well, you're saying it might be. Is it?
No, it depends on where we meet clients, where they are, in their homes, schools, or community rehabilitation.
Will you be meeting any clients at 5006 Bel Air Road?
No, it's going to be for office use only.
Okay.
So, ma'am, all of the healthcare visits, and in your addendum to your application, you describe it as like wraparound health services
Yes, sir.
for behavioral health.
Yes.
So all of the visits will be off-site.
It will be offsite.
Okay. I mean, is this purely in people's homes? I mean, there's HIPAA laws about privacy
In-home
and
service,
okay.
as clients want. Most of the time, the client we have now, that I have now for PRP service, they might choose to just meet in the community.
But I'm saying, where in the community would that be?
Yeah, it might be like a library,
So you can have psychotherapy in a library?
one-on-one, yeah. They can be, if they're helping them for school, school skills, schoolwork skills, they meet in the library, they help them through to know maybe the use of library, or if they have assignment that they need support.
Because I think where the chairman's questions were going with this, and this is what the board is interested in hearing, is that there's a difference between an office use and a healthcare clinic use. And a healthcare clinic wouldn't only just be medical health care, it would also be mental health care as well. And the clinic use would not be allowed in this district, whereas an office use would be. So if there were patients that were coming to this address, that would not fit within any kind of permit for this particular property. So if the use was strictly office use, it was answering phones, it was storing office paper and having a copier machine and having offices for mental health practitioners, that's something that the board could approve. But if patients were driving and coming to this location, that's not something that the board could approve. So I think the board just wants to hear your business plan to show that you're not having any type of patient coming to this location.
Coming to the building now, because mainly we go to their homes, we go to schools. Basically, like right now, I just came from schools, attending to some students. It's not mainly them coming over to the office. But if we want to do the paperwork, we want to be able to come to the office. If we want to do the staff training, we want to be in the office.
So these offices are for Victorious Mental Health Care,
Yes,
right?
sir.
How long has Victorious Mental Health Care been in business?
It's really brand new that I'm the one that just putting it together. I have approval for temporary approval to start to put it into to start the business, but I cannot do anything to go to behavioral mental health program to follow with the application without the occupancy permit. I have to be able to have everything in place before I can follow up with it.
Do you have any contracts with the neighborhood facilities where you want to provide these services? The library, the schools?
Library is kind of like free place that we can go to in the community. And as for schools, it will depend. When we receive referral, then we go to wherever the clients are.
So you'd meet your client at the
Where
library,
they
for
are.
instance, and
If they are in need of library, they might not be in need of library. It might be school-based services that they need. It might be in home.
do you have any contracts with the city school system?
I have
Or any
no.
other schools?
No, this is the beginning of the program. I have not, I just have Joint Commission approval going through the manual and all that, you know.
I'm a little confused because you said you're just starting the business, but you're telling me where you go and meet folks.
Yeah, I work for a company now.
Okay.
I'm starting mine.
All right, you work for a company that is established and that
Right.
performs this service.
Yes. I am starting up Victorious.
And are you licensed to do that work?
That is the license that I'm pursuing now. But in order for me to finish it, I need occupancy, the use for the building to attach to to get the approval. I already have approval from Joint Commission.
Does that make sense to you?
And is the approval you're seeking a place where you can perform your services?
Yeah, I need a place. I need an office to attach to the document as well.
Okay, so whatever approval you're getting, here's my question. Are you seeking approval from a state agency to allow
Yes.
you to do the business? And so you're applying for a business at 5006 Bel Air Road,
Yeah.
which is going to be Victoria's.
The office.
Let me finish. You can't speak at the same time. To perform services for Victorious Mental Health Care at 5006 Bel Air Road.
Yes, sir.
So you're telling the state that's where you're going to be performing the services.
Yes, sir.
But you're telling us you're not going to be performing the services there.
That it will be an office. I need to include.
Are you,
I-
let me just,
I'm sorry.
for the purposes of your license, you need to have a home office, is that?
Home
or an
office,
an
yes.
office where a base, a home base.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is why you need an address.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why you needed approval.
Yes, ma'am.
You have no intention of ever treating any patients at
No,
this spot?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, and the license doesn't require you to use that address for
Yes,
treatment?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. All right, anything else you'd like to add?
No.
All right, thank you very much. Calling the case of 2019-284, 4300 Falls Road, Bishwarkama Group LLC. Sheriff Peter Previs.
Well,
Or
hi,
not.
I'm Pete Previs now.
Okay.
This is an erroneous duplicate filing. Mr. Previs already did this case 2 weeks ago. You already reviewed all the constitutionality of this thing. It was just an erroneous filing,
Hang
miscommunication.
on one second. Can we have your name?
Will Bauer, B-A-U-E-R. Or Lou Catelli, Catelli.
All right.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And this, just so the record's clear, this was to continue use, the first floor is a grocery deli with retail sales of alcohol beverages, correct?
Yes, exactly right.
And
included before.
it was included in the docket that we had for the series of cases.
I believe 2 weeks ago, Mr. Previous in the back of the room, if you need to talk to him, and not very well dressed today, so he set me up instead.
That's okay.
It was a little miscommunication, there was duplicate filings, and you already dealt with this case before.
Okay, so there's nothing new you're presenting
No,
today?
no, not at all.
Okay,
No.
so the resolution of your case, 4300 Falls Road, will be a part parcel of the larger matter that we heard.
Exactly, that you heard exactly that address 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Very well.
I apologize for any
Okay,
inconvenience.
that's all right. Well, thanks for clearing that up.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
wonderful day. Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care. Yikes. Okay. Next case to be called is 2019-340, 5501 Holabird Avenue. Michael Burton.
Good afternoon,
Good
Mr. Chairman,
afternoon.
members of the board. My name's Jason Vittori with Smith, Gilday and Schmidt. I've got John O'Connor here on behalf of Amazon
Good afternoon,
and Michael
sir.
Burton.
You
I'll
done?
swear them in.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, and just for the record, Mr. Vittori, this is a request to renovate the portion known as 5501 Holabird Avenue of the existing warehouse for use as an accessory carryout/delivery retail food establishment.
That is correct, yes. We're seeking conditional use approval today.
Awesome. Okay, do we have any staff reports?
Yeah, Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that the application details the proposed use as an additional service area for the existing distribution warehouse, at which patrons would have an option of personally collecting their consumer goods orders rather than having them delivered to an off-site address, although they could also have them delivered to an off-site address from this location. The department therefore has no objection to this application. Thank you.
Very well. Mr. Vittori, tell us about your case.
Excellent. So this case has come about as a result of taking what is now, I believe, a 346,408 square foot sortation center, small indeed, off Holabird Avenue, I guess, and taking a portion of it, which is approximately 26,477 square feet. And what they want to be able to do is deliver food to people. They presently now do not have perishable items. They have all non-perishable items, and they get sorted.
Groceries or prepared foods?
Groceries, I think it's cut meats, deli meats are cut, and you also have, I guess, vegetables are trimmed and taken from a much larger group and put it in a smaller package. So, in meeting with, I think, the FDA and the health department, they were very particular of, you've got to have a certain zoning approval, which kind of fit in this field. And then also, I believe Mr. Burton has several meetings with Jeff Veal, and ultimately Jeff said, this is the use that it is. It's permitted in the underlying zoning, which is I-2. I think obviously we're here today for the conditional use approval to be able to fit within that use. While the definition, I would say, is not spot on for what Amazon is, I don't know that the current Amazon operation has a spot on definition for it as well. I think it falls under generally the category of warehouse, and I think into this particular one, one could argue it's still the warehouse. You're warehousing things. In this case, you may be refrigerating stuff. It's kind of like food trucks where you don't have the ability to, if you don't have the ability to wash your hands, you can't have those because you could be spreading foodborne illness. This is really, I think, generated from the health department moreover, but zoning-wise, while there's not a perfect designation for this use, I think we satisfy the definition, and certainly I think zoning administration agree with that as well. One thing I think, just as far as planning's comment, their second to last condition, it says the large size, I just look at it, I'm sorry, pictures. It talks about patrons. There will be no patrons here. All this is picked up by a driver and delivered to people's homes as far as the food component that we're here for today. Besides that, I can go through questions for all of them, but if you were comfortable with that summation, I could show you pictures of where it is. And
I don't have any questions.
How does this work? I call this location and magically the stuff appears at my front door?
By drone? No.
Let him answer
Well-
the question.
Sure.
What was your name, sir?
My name is John O'Connor,
Thank you.
and what you would do is you would log on to the website or the Amazon app, place your order through that for the Prime Now delivery, and you'll have menus to select from, and then it will be delivered directly to you.
Gotcha.
It's going from Prime Now to Amazon Fresh, and we can try to go through, but essentially it's not food to food.
Never have to go to the store again?
It's sort of like you order up, you dial in, order your food, hot food, cold food,
Well,
not hot.
not hot, right.
Okay. And there's no food preparation on site?
Well, there is.
Slicing.
There's slicing and washing and
Cutting,
trimming of
yeah.
vegetables.
Yes. It's vague, but the definition is vague.
Big.
Yeah.
I mean, you have general uses or generic uses, and I think in this case, to call it this carry-out food establishment, it's not being carried out by customers themselves, but it will be carried out and delivered to them. It's a little bit of a
Be delivered.
oddity. But I think overall, in the grand scheme of housing a bunch of materials that people order through an app or online and then have delivered to them, you could just as easily make that argument, but I think for the purposes of the health department, they very much want it to be called some kind of food establishment, that food can be handled there. They want that established.
Okay. All right. Any further questions?
No questions.
All right.
I'm good.
Thank you so much, folks, for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Go, draw a blank. Okay, case number 2019-341, 2550 through 2360 Boston Street. Yannick Ganeres.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Mr. Henares?
That's me.
Mr. Henares, this is a request to use portion known as 2350 Boston Street as a tattoo shop.
Yes.
Okay. Could you raise your right hands and be sworn?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Yeah, Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Canton Waterfront Urban Renewal Plan area. That urban renewal plan does contain architectural guidelines for property rehabilitation, and the applicant is encouraged to consult that particular plan if there are going to be any building facade changes or new signage. Subject to that comment, the department recommends that approval of this application be subject to the condition that all changes to the exterior of the existing structure in which this use will be located are completed in accordance with plans approved by the Planning Department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Henares, having heard from planning, should we be favorably disposed towards your application? Are those conditions and requirements acceptable to you?
Yes, there actually will be no changes to the outside.
Okay. Well, tell us about your project.
So I've been in the tattoo industry for 10 years. I think it's time that I open my own. I've been a Canton resident for many years now. We both have. And we're well liked in the neighborhood, in the area. We're friends with other business owners, workers in the areas, the bars, things like that. And we have support from them, and I think it would be a good time and a good area for us to open and start, building a legacy for our families.
Okay. Let's see, to use portion. Do you have a sense of what the hours of operation will be for your shop?
Yes, actually, we teeter back and forth between 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. Basically, we want to be open earlier in the day. Traditionally, tattoo shops are open throughout the whole day, really late, right? And, we're all family-oriented. We want to be home for dinner. We don't want to keep people out working. Right now, I'm in that situation where I'm working, and I work in Annapolis, so I have to go through 895 every day, and the traffic, sometimes it takes me an hour to get home. And by the time I'm there, I'm tired, So I just want it to be a family-friendly environment where we can all still enjoy our lives, not, put so much into our work. Because you want to work to live, not live to work. You know what I mean?
Also less security concerns if you're closing at 7 p.m.
Exactly. Yeah, and we'll be closing before the liquor store, which is right next to us, so.
Excellent.
Okay.
I was going to ask, this property is one tenant space. It's kind of like a small little strip center, right? And there's a liquor store there. There's like a real estate office, maybe?
It's an insurance company.
Insurance company. And it's right where Boston, was that
Montford?
Montford? Yeah, so all the businesses face Montford, but the property address is off of Boston.
Right.
So the the stores themselves don't front on Boston, they front on Montford, and it's a weird shaped, isn't there like a bank or something in the corner there too? It's a very strangely shaped
Yeah,
property.
it's kind of like a V.
And then your tenant space is approximately how many square feet? It's small.
1,360.
Yeah, okay, so it's one of the,
Perfect for a tattoo shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Wish you luck. Case number 2019-344, 1801 North of Mount Street. Reginald Rogers. Good afternoon, sir. Hi, how are you, ma'am? And sir, you're Mr. Rogers?
Yes, I am.
And Mr. Rogers, this is a request to use first floor as a restaurant, is that correct?
That is correct.
Why don't we have the party sworn?
Raise your hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do we have any staff reports?
Yes, Planning Department has reviewed this application, believes that this particular proposed use at this site meets all the requirements for approval as a neighborhood commercial establishment, and the department is therefore recommending approval of the application. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Rogers, tell us about your project, sir.
This particular project is going to be a authentic Jamaican restaurant.
Okay.
The owners here are proposing to renovate the entire structure on the first floor, exterior as well as the interior, and provide some seating inside the restaurant. So folks that care to eat inside can, or they can take their packaged goods out of the restaurant. The food that's going to be served is not your standard chicken and waffle type meals. This is going to be real meals in a community that's starving for lack of having good prepared foods. And that's what these owners are proposing to do.
Okay.
That's great.
So we look forward to developing the project and doing all that we can to satisfy that neighborhood.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what your hours of operation might be at this point? And your name, state your name, ma'am.
Sorry. My name is Roxanne Bowley,
What's your last name?
Bowley. Okay, I'm proposing, because 10:30 a.m. in the morning to like around 7 p.m.
And would that be for restaurant or also restaurant and, will that be the time the business closes? Or would you still be able to purchase things after that time
That's
without
when
sitting
the
down?
business will open and when the business will close. Yes.
Okay. All right.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can chime in real quick.
Yes, sir.
This property is in an R8 zoning district, which means that you can have a restaurant. That's why we're here today.
Yes.
But a carry-out restaurant would not be allowed. Now,
Correct.
many restaurants have a carry-out portion. You know, if you have food left over, you're not going to throw away.
Correct.
But I just want to make sure that it's clear that any permit that was issued for a restaurant would require you to show that there were tables, that there were servers. The permit would require that. So
Absolutely.
if there weren't tables, then it would constitute a carry-out shop, which would not be allowed.
Yes, sir.
So as long as that's your business plan, is to have
You understand
seating.
that,
Yes, we
and that
do.
is our proposed.
Great.
Can I say
Thank you.
something?
Sure. What was your name, sir?
My name is Michael Douglas. I would like to state that, you know, as Mr. Reginald stated, that our food is not going to be like what we call regular food. We're going to be doing mostly organic meat, everything organic, because we want to start a healthy diet for, you know, the community.
Right.
And also would like to, you know, contribute back to the community where it's needed. So it's not like, you know, we're going to be a selfish establishment. We're going to, you know, do what we can to make the community a better place.
Certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have any more questions from the board?
No questions.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. Running out of ink. Okay. Calling the case of 2019-350, 102 East 20th Street, Sam Gherkin. (102 East 20th Street, Sam Gherkin, continue use as 3 dwelling units. Okay. So no show for now. Calling the case of 319-350, 2019-351, 12 West Montgomery Street, Mr. Pruddle.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. To use portion of first floor as a barber shop, is that correct?
That is correct.
Swear, Mr. Pruddle, for this case?
I was sworn as part of the
Okay, you
consent
already sworn,
documents.
all right. Any staff reports?
Yes, Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is located within the Federal Hill Historic District, and therefore any exterior changes to the building would require approval by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation or its staff. The department does recommend approval of this application, subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, alterations, and signage, are completed or installed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pruddle, should we be favorably disposed towards your project? Are those conditions acceptable?
They are.
Okay, tell us about your project, sir.
Sure. So 12 West Montgomery Street is a property that I've been in front of this board before within the last several months for a neighborhood commercial establishment.
Coffee shop.
For the coffee shop, correct. It is still open, and it leads to the request that is going on that I'm here for today. The primary use of this premises is for a co-working space. It's called Vision Co-working.
Okay.
When the project was originally planned, there was, I believe, 12 dwelling units and a series of co-working offices. That's since shifted to only 2 dwelling units and almost the entire property as a co-working space. And as part of that co-working space, the manager has been looking to provide amenities, one being a coffee shop that was originally internal to the co-working space as it was, as well as a small barber chair that was only for the tenants of the co-working space. The coffee shop had attracted some attention by passers-by to the point where Vision decided, and the owners created what they now call the Hanover and Hughes Collective, being the 2 streets, one to the, I guess, to the south and to the west of the subject location. That's where they get the name. And now the coffee shop is known as Hanover and Hughes. It's received approval from this board, is open, is a public amenity to the neighborhood, and that's the goal with this barber shop. Per the floor plans that were submitted to the board, it's only 300 square feet, 314 square feet. There are 2 chairs, one of which is primarily for men, men's hairstyles. The other one is for women. There are 2 full-time barbers who will be staffing this, and it will be available not only to the tenants of the Vision co-working space, but to the general public as well. The proposed hours at this point are Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Even though I would not like this to be limited to that, that would be an example of the general hours. And being only 2 folks working, they really serve about, at maximum, 8 people a day each, a total of 16, if they should be so lucky to have many people. And I would urge the board to approve it. The principal entrance is along with the coffee shop. They're going to share the name of the Hanover and Hughes Collective off of Hughes Street, which is a full public right-of-way, not an alley, even though the premises address is 12 West Montgomery. We've run this by the community, including some of the neighbors who showed up in opposition to the coffee shop, who are now frequent customers of the coffee shop and don't have a problem with it. And I would be happy to answer any questions, and I'd urge the board to approve this appeal.
Okay.
No questions.
I'm
from
good.
me.
Great.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Pruddle.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. On the case of 2019-352, 2641 Ashland Avenue, Andrea and Courtney Randall. How are you?
Fine, thanks. I'm Andrea.
Are you Miss Randall?
Yes, I'm Andrea Randall. Courtney
Andrea
is my
Randall?
younger sister.
Okay, and this is a request to use the entire premises as offices, is that correct?
Yes,
Raise your right hand, please.
yes,
You swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property would qualify for the proposed use as a neighborhood commercial establishment, and has no objection to approval of the application. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Randall, can you tell us about your project?
Yes, so my project, I guess this building has been my family for like 60 years, and I think each generation changes it. So when my granddad had it, it was a corner store, the only like locally owned like corner and grocery store. Then he passed, and then my brother and mother had it. They decided to make it a barber shop, hair salon. I don't do that. I got sent away to college. So now I'm back, and I have all of these properties that they left, which 2641 Ashland's one. The upstairs and downstairs is basically a barbershop, but what I do is I'm actually a mental health clinician, so I was trying to make it office space because I currently work at everybody else's office, but then I have this building that's vacant that we just pay taxes on every year, and I'm like, well, I already help the community out all the time. My mom, we just got this big mural painted of her on the back of the Save a Lot on Monument and Rose Street, so we do a lot like gardens, take the kids to do different things, basketball tournaments, football, like we kind of help them out a lot. And so I do all of this stuff for free, but I'm like, I have this building, can I like do computer rooms, can I add stuff? I know how to write and get grants for it, and the community needs it. It's a lot of like crime, a lot of poverty, but they knock on Miss Nikki's door. So I'm just trying to figure out how do I use my degree and also my properties to make it beneficial to myself, but also to the community.
Do you have any evidence that the second floor was ever used as something other than residential?
Well, not before I was born, but when I was younger, I do remember the upstairs, like my granddad like had it like, not to say storage, but like they would store stuff up there, and in the basement, I do know that it was like a deli, so like I would see them like go up, but like I said, I was younger. So then when my mom and dad did it, my mom and my brother did it once my granddad passed on. They used downstairs for a barbershop, and then upstairs they would rent it. Then when I got it, I followed suit.
Rented as a residential?
Yes.
Is it being used as residential now?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't do anything, but I'm not a landlord.
So you would be using it primarily for your purpose to do your office work?
Yes, my office work, but the downstairs that is currently like a hair salon barbershop that services the customers, the clients would be downstairs, but it's not really
Clients.
So when I say clients, it's like when you think of like mental health, and I heard the other lady speaking earlier about PRP, you're technically not doing mental health. It's more so like group stuff. It's like community work. Like the kids come in and they do like computer stuff. They do their homework. You can meet at the library. You can meet at schools. You can meet at a lot of places. But when the accreditation comes, they just make sure you have to have like the fire inspections, lead inspections, all the same inspections you have to have to service people in like a barbershop, a hair salon, a food place. Like you have to do all the same inspections, but you have to actually have a facility. So any building you buy, you got to kind of get it like zoned for it. Like would they be upstairs? No. But the downstairs part that already has customers all the time, probably so, yes.
Well, so the downstairs is, a business is still operating in the downstairs?
Yes, it's a hair salon, but we're closing it. I'm trying to abate the business. Like, the business people said I had to go and close the business out, so that's what I did. I'm in the process of doing that. You basically abate that business of the hair salon.
Dissolve the hair salon?
Yeah, dissolve it, yeah, or get rid of it. And then turn it into whatever you want to do next. But upstairs would be the offices. Downstairs is offices technically, because I asked them that. I was like, should I do community center? What should I do? They were like, do office spaces.
But you do intend to, as you indicated, as you just described, some of your mental health work there?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be. I see my clients in the field, like under my. I mean, I do my business is a community-based business, but I do know downstairs for the PRP, like it technically, like they would see clients there. Like the clients always, any building usually does PRP. The clients come to your building. Like you might have computers, job applications. You might have seminars with people that come and bring other services that they could benefit from and things like that. Like they usually do come to see what other services you have.
Okay. Mr. Baumgartner, given this particular zoning, is there any issue with regard to that kind of use of the space?
A little bit.
Okay. Tell us about that.
We're trying to help you.
Okay. Point me in the right direction.
So, the definition of office in the zoning code is office means an establishment that engages in the processing, manipulation, or application of business information or professional expertise, whether or not it offers services to the public. It's not a very great definition. The alternative, or I should say another definition in the code, is for a community center. A community center means a facility in which people who live in the neighborhood or community are able to meet and carry on cultural, social, or recreational activities. Conditional community center is a conditional use in an R8 zoning district, so it's something that the board could approve. The board will have to determine, based upon your description of the use, if that type of use matches a community center, matches an office, or neither.
Would you like it to be?
I would like it to be more of a community center because downstairs, like even if the PRP uses that address, if I rent it out to a PRP, it's zoned as a community center, meaning that people can gather. And when I'm doing like my plans, I don't have to knock down any walls and stuff. I figured out how do
I
you,
think what he's trying to tell you is that if you couldn't rent it out as a like people couldn't see patients there.
I can still do
You could
PRP.
use it as a
Yes.
community center, but
Understood.
that would be limited to that use.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I see my clients in the community, and if they use the sub address, they still are able to come and gather there. Like, they don't have to bill from there, don't have to do any of that. It's still a place for you to come. Like, if you meet a group of kids at the library, you can meet a group of kids there. It's still a community center. Like, you're still servicing them. I get it, yes.
Okay. So if that is a direction that you would be pursuing, question is, can you pursue that on this application?
Or do I keep it as office space? And
Well, because office space has the definition we just described.
I know he said you can or can't see consumers in the office space. He said you can or you can't. Not
You
a good
can.
definition. That's
So, for example, an accountant could have an office in which they saw their tax preparation clients or something like that. The question that the chairman brings up is a technical one because regardless of what the board decides, if the permit request is for office, that's how it moves forward. So if the board said that your description more closely matches a community center, the permit folks are going to have an issue because the only permit on file is for an office. So I think a good thing to do would be to kind of go back to the drawing board and if you're going to have more of a community center use, look at your floor plan and reconfigure it so it more clearly shows the intended use of the property. On our application, there's a couple lines where you can kind of more thoroughly explain what your uses are going to be. So I would, you could more fully explain that on that application. Now you'd have to go back through this process, so you'd have to refile a new appeal.
So then my next question was, who do I call? Because I had this conversation, this whole entire conversation before I did any of this, and that was my juggle back and forth, and they told me to do offices.
So, well, it's always on you. So it's always on the applicant, since it's your application, and certainly there are land use professionals that would be able to provide advice. So we can't provide legal advice to you, and the city itself can't provide advice to you either. So you could certainly find a professional that would be able to do that, or you can, based upon this hearing, you could refile per the testimony and per the questions from the board members to maybe more better describe the use. I think a new site plan or a new floor plan would be helpful for the board to show, the total of this space, and to show what the rooms might be used for. Another thing about community centers as well is they're not tenant spaces, right? So they're not a building where you rent out this space for this person or this space for that person. Yeah, so that's that would be a whole separate type of use. A community center is typically a single structure, although it doesn't have to be, that operates in conjunction with itself. So if the types of services that you're describing would be in a community center, but perhaps a new application would be beneficial for you. But I'll leave it to the board to.
Yeah, but I guess then my question would be that if we have the bottom zone then as commercial, then the top zone is residential, what am I allowed to zone the bottom as? Would be my questions.
Sure.
Because
So
you're saying that it has to be the whole building, but then when I applied, they said that I would have to keep the top residential and I would have to keep the bottom this, I guess, split level thing. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do my offices up top. But then am I then allowed to have people at the bottom? People already come in the bottom. So what does that look like? Is kind of like my question, because it would never be the whole entire building according to the zoning stuff, because I can't change upstairs to commercial because it's already residential.
So our review of the records in this case are silent as to the second floor use. So I don't believe there's anything in the record to show that the upstairs was ever lawfully used as a residence. It may have been practically used as a residence.
Are you serious?
That's correct.
Well, then I want to keep it all as office space. Then. No, seriously, I do. Like, I want to keep it all as office space. Like, I'd rather have an office building.
So in order to qualify for neighborhood commercial, which the first floor certainly does, you have to have a prior non-residential use. So if the second floor was used in conjunction with a corner store, like you mentioned, or a barber shop, and that could be for storage, that could be for, that would certainly make the second floor qualified. And then once you could still maintain that second floor.
I said entire premises office space, but they said when I got here for me to discuss up and down with you guys. So
Sure.
I would much rather do office space than.
And I think in this case, it's not a matter of there's a permit for a residence, and so that kind of line is kind of shut. It's that there's just no indication that the upstairs was used for a residence. It just happens to look like it could have been used as a dwelling unit. And this is for the board's benefit. Prior to 2017, you didn't have to register a single dwelling unit. So there were many single dwelling units in the city that were never registered as rental units, so you would never know that they were there. Now that's not the case any longer.
So yeah, I'm gonna stick to office spaces then. If I can use my whole building for offices, I would much rather do that.
But I actually think what you're trying to say is that just because it wasn't registered doesn't mean she can't use it, right? Continue to use it. If there's an argument to be made, if it's only been used as a residential, if she's been renting it out this entire time.
I haven't. I don't rent it.
Okay, never mind.
I'm not a landlord. I just remember I said that. I was like, I'm not into that.
The questions that board member led off was, what is your understanding of the history of the second floor? Because you asked for the entire premises, you have to establish some prior use of the second level.
Yeah, they use it for storage. I think when my mom was alive, they rented it, but that was over like 2 years ago now. Like
Well, I have a question for Mr. Baumgartner.
Yes, sir.
The applicant has stated that historically there has been some use in storage and things like that. Subsequent to that, there's been, residential use, rental. Does that interrupt the history of the office use?
If there were lawful residential use, I would argue that it would. If it was merely used for residential purposes without a lawful permit to do so, I don't think it would. It would be very beneficial for the board, though, to have other testimony other than yours to say that the upstairs was used for storage or was used for some other thing. And that could be neighbors, that could be prior tenants that ran the barbershop, that could be any number of different things. But that it would help, I think, explain to the board what that upstairs was used for, whether or not it had a permit for it or not. And I know this is all very vague, but
I understand. I mean, what do I have to go in and ask them to write something?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's certainly.
He may know. I don't know.
Sure.
Is there someone you'd like to call up to assist you?
I can call my cousin Keith Lewis if he wants to come. You can come.
Come on up, cousin.
Come up and be sworn, and then we can hear from you if there's something you think you can offer to this. Well, let's get him sworn.
Swear or affirm the testimony that you're giving this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Yes, like I said, I'm an older.
Your name?
My name's Keith Lewis.
Okay, Mr. Lewis.
I'm an older relative of Mrs. Andrea Randall, and when I was young, it was a store, a corner store, and when I was young, it was stored, like groceries and supplies for the store was stored upstairs. I can't recall a legal resident ever being upstairs. It was always used as, that's my knowledge, commercial building, and downstairs is a barber shop. And for the most part, what she's saying, I'm assuming office space opposed to the community center, something she potentially would like to do. It's nothing, to the best of my knowledge, upon our discussions, nothing she was doing now. It's the process she would do later on. But as far as right now, as far as what she was trying to do as far as office space, use it for storage and records and such things as that, and computers.
Okay.
And potentially, I guess, amend it to whatever she personally would like to do for the most part, office space.
Well, that's why I ask, can we go forward on this one? You've requested you filed an application for the use of the entire premises offices. our job is to find out what the evidence is of the prior use of the second level, so you can have the entire premises
As
as
office,
space.
understood. Because
And
like downstairs qualifies, it's just a question mark with the, understood.
Right.
And like even when, pardon me for cutting you, even when her mother was alive, she was storing like stuff at the barber shop. It's in the basement and upstairs.
Okay. Any more questions from the board?
Do they plan to submit a new application?
Oh, I guess that would be the other issue. So you want to go forward on the record that we have now for the office premises, the entire premises as offices? Or is there something you'd like to?
And I would simply add that if the board doesn't find your testimony sufficient for an office and disapproves it, if you were to come back with a different use, you could file that tomorrow. So you wouldn't have to wait 12 months or anything like that. So unlike other appeals where there would be a 12-month waiting period, in this case there wouldn't be if the testimony did.
That I gotta keep paying for.
That would be for the board to decide as to whether or not the evidence before it shows is sufficient to show an office use.
Okay. I'm listening.
Please keep in mind what the chairman said at the beginning, which is only because we are a limited board today, if one board member doesn't find in your favor, you won't be able to proceed on your current application. So you would have an opportunity at this time to ask for a postponement.
It has to be like a postponement.
Okay, I want to postpone it.
Very well, your postponement request will be granted.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Calling the 20, what was that case number? 2019-352 is postponed.
Next one's consent.
Yeah. Calling the case of 2019-354, 4101 Roland Avenue, and I guess I'd call them both. 4103 Roland Avenue, William Reuter.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. This is a request to construct a new third-floor addition and increase occupancy from 3 dwellings to 6 dwellings with 6 off-street parking spaces, correct?
That's correct.
And that's for each of 4101 and 4103.
That's correct.
Okay, we have our opposition here. Everybody's ready, we'll get everyone sworn.
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Do we have any staff reports?
Yes. First, we have 18 individual letters from residents. To summarize, they're writing today as a resident, a neighbor, indicating that the zoning rules exist for a reason. Prevent overcrowding of the land, avoid undue concentration of population, and reduce congestion in the streets. And were thoughtfully imposed to keep areas from overdevelopment. Our block, this property, is meant to accommodate single-family units in both detached and semi-detached buildings, row house developments, and limited low-rise multiple-family garden apartment developments of a moderate density. The developers of the property want to change it to be all one-bedroom units, essentially adding 6 extra units. They will increase the population or density on our block. More people means more cars. Not only will this burden be for the small businesses that rely on space for people to be able to park and visit, but it will also make it harder for the rest of us who live on the block to park. Some of us are lucky, we have a driveway, but even that is blocked by people who cannot find a place to park. It's difficult to go to work when you can't get your car out of your driveway. Let's see. With this proposal, the parking will only get worse and would add extra many units to the block. Please deny this variance. And that summarizes what the 18 residents had written. We also have resident correspondence in opposition. They, for the most part, all repeat the same things. The Roldan Community Association, Host Heights, and Roland Park proper. And then we have Ms. Pat Clark's correspondence, but she'll probably speak for herself. Thank you. Yes. And then planning.
Okay. Planning Department reviewed these two applications. We'll speak first to Appeal 2019-354 for 4101 Roland Avenue. This particular property is currently authorized for use as a multifamily dwelling containing 3 dwelling units. It has a larger lot of the 2 properties in front of you. This lot encloses 11,480 square feet approximately, and it does not therefore meet the requirement for 6 dwelling units to be in this particular zoning district. The amount of variance that would be required would be approximately 22%, which the Planning Department considers unusually large. The Planning Department wishes to note that the applicant could build the proposed building addition, particularly the 3rd floor, and add up to 2 additional dwelling units without having to obtain a variance for that purpose. The department recommends disapproval of this application unless the applicant provides the board with justification meeting the standards of Section 5-308 of the zoning code that would allow approval of a 6th dwelling unit in this multifamily dwelling. On the other property, appeal number 2019-355 for 4103 Roland Avenue. This is a much smaller lot. It contains approximately 7,138 square feet. The amount of variance that would be required of this particular lot area in order to allow 6 dwelling units would be 51.5%. The department considers this an excessive amount of variance and would therefore obviously need to be justified according to the standards of Section 5-308 of this property. This would essentially double the number of dwelling units on this particular property. The Department of Planning recommends disapproval of this application also, unless the applicant provides the board with justification meeting the standards of Section 5-308 of the zoning code that would allow approval of twice the number of dwelling units in a multifamily dwelling that currently meets zoning code lot area requirements. The board is allowed to grant a variance based upon unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty in accordance with the terms of Section 5-308A, but it is unclear to the department what hardship or practical difficulty exists with continuation of existing use of the premises as a multifamily dwelling unit containing 3 dwelling units. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Okay, so tell us about your project, sir.
Certainly. May I share some materials with you as well?
Certainly.
I have 2 copies. I'm sorry that I don't have 3. I'd like to state that I'm not deaf to the opposition of the community, nor can I be blind to it with as many people as are lined up here, nor to the probabilistic likelihood that this is approved with a 3-member board and the substantial opposition of both the planning department and the community. However, I would like to state that this is a wonderful area of the city, that its vibrancy and its continued vibrancy, I think, is dependent on the improvement of both the accommodation that is provided to people and the diversity of people that are included in that community. And I think that the opposition fails to appreciate what I'm trying to do in providing more units to this location. This location historically was zoned R5, which made it eligible for as many as 11 to 12 dwelling units, and was only recently changed in the 2016 review of the zoning code, which I predominantly support. The existing building is a multifamily building. It is actually, according to the zoning office, already zoned for 12 dwelling units, and I have written documentation from the zoning office corroborating that with me prior to my purchase of the property, which was also partly part of my motivation in purchasing the property. I like the architectural precedent in the area. We would do nothing to disturb that. We would actually like to maintain it and to add some modern appeal to that. Everything that we're doing from a massing perspective and a use of the lot perspective stays within the bounds of the zoning department. The one variance that we'd require from a massing or a use of the lot perspective would be for impervious surfaces. But we share an easement with 2 of our neighbors who use one of our driveways. We have 2 driveways on the property, which accounts for a lot of that overuse of the impervious surfaces. We have sufficient parking, which is a repeat disagreement that I've heard about our proposal for as many as 12 dwelling units or more, actually, if we were to use more of the lot of 4101 for impervious surfaces and parking. I think there's a question here of what kind of a neighborhood you want in the future relative to what it is now. If we were to go through the presentation that I put on your table, which includes the written documentation from the zoning office, which I can provide a written email corroborating the zoning signs, which I wanted to show that we had posted, and then discussing the demographics of the area and how they've changed. The number of housing units in this area has increased very moderately, 1.8% over the last 5 years. But the total number of occupied housing units has actually gone down by 1.1%. So there's not an additional density. This is based on Bureau of Census statistics. So the last census was 2010. They do periodic random samples to make estimates going over the course of time. The household income as a percentage of rents has actually increased from 8% of your gross household income to 8.8%, partly perhaps because there are not being enough units available for people to rent in this area. The age of people in the area has predominantly clustered around people 25 to 39. The number of young children has decreased, and the number of older people has remained mostly the same, older being 50 plus. Disability, number of disabled people living in this community has declined. Our current building is not accessible under ADA standards, doesn't need to be. Both buildings are 3 units and are grandfathered into it. Were we to do this renovation, not only from a planning perspective, but from an ADA accessibility perspective, we would be required to bring both those buildings up to code to provide accessible ADA units. Diversity, you see the reduction in the Black and African American population by a change of 35% as a proportional share from 12% of the area to 7% of the area. And then on the last page, the veteran population has also gone down as a percentage of population in the area. My overall opinion here is that this is a wonderful area. I'm very glad that the community is in such support of maintaining an area and the vision that they have for it. I would like to provide my time, attention, and vision to the area as well so that Baltimore can be pushed into the future, not stuck in the past. The mission of the planning department is to promote a more diverse, sustainable, and vibrant city as a way to be an economic and cultural driver of the region. And having lived in San Francisco, New York, Boston, and Baltimore, I believe that a much better way to approach that is to embrace some of your strongest and most core areas with the kind of diversity and sustainability, which partly comes through modern building techniques and density, and to further them. And that's why I felt, despite those probabilistic views and despite my not being deaf, I thought it was very important to make a statement to the community around how I felt about this project. I will also mention that I am, as the planning department mentioned, able to add 2 dwelling units to this property. Thank you.
Couple of quick things. So I'm sure you realize that from the height variance is not, you're allowed that. We're really talking about density here. And in order for you to get the variance you're requesting, you would need to address the issues of hardship or the uniqueness of the property. Do you have anything to speak to that?
Well, the uniqueness
I applaud you for coming in, and I thought you gave a really nice presentation. It doesn't speak to any of the issues that would allow the board to even consider the variance you've requested.
Understood. So, I think it's a fair point. I think the uniqueness of the property stems from its prior zoning classification, the misappropriation of the record, if that's the case, by the zoning office, and having told me that there are 6 units on either address, so 12 units total on this property at the time of my purchase.
So the hardship meaning you thought that you were going to be able to make it each 6, and now
And now, in full disclosure, in further conversation with the zoning office, they said that they had a prior paper record of an inspection that then indicated 3 units on either property, which then they suggested that the best way to proceed from there, if I want to have a further conversation about it, would be to go through the office here, which is why I made the approach here to have a discussion.
Okay.
So total there are 12 parking spots?
Total, there are 4 garage spaces, and then there are 2 adjacent spaces to the garages, and then 2 spaces that you could very easily fit at the back of the property.
So how many total parking spots are there?
I would say that there are 10 total parking spots.
So the parking issue is not a valid concern.
If there were 12, if we had to do 12 units, we would probably have to pave an additional area to the side of 4101. But from an impervious services perspective for the combined lots, it is not an issue, no.
And each of the units would be a 1-bedroom unit?
That is the way that my architect has currently drawn the plans. I'm open to comment and interpretation on that something might be better for the community and a
Well,
vision
just also
that
just
pushes
thinking,
forward.
I've heard the opposition speak, one of the things they spoke to was parking and their car blocking the driveway. Sounds to me like that you're able to address that. I guess my next question is, they talked about too many people coming, but if we're really thinking, if we're doing with a one-bedroom unit, I mean, we're not talking about.
Well, then I think you could get into a discussion of bedrooms and how much density per dwelling unit and what the actual result ends up being. But again, I'm open. One of the things that I think has pained me just in the discussions that I've prior had with the community is I have asked several times, on certainly 3, maybe 4 occasions, for whether there is a middle ground that we could explore in which they would support additional dwelling units on the property. And in each case, I have received no response to that specific question, asked very explicitly.
Well, have you considered just doing the 2 additional units?
Yes, sir.
And what say you to that, given the opposition that you have and the...
I say that I would have, I'm sorry, I say I would have more to say about that after today's meeting.
Meaning if you don't prevail, then that's your fallback
Do you
position.
already own both
Correct, sir.
properties, sir?
Yes,
Okay.
Have these properties been consolidated?
they have not been consolidated.
Because what I'm having trouble understanding is that I see your printout with the 2 separate properties.
Yes.
And it indicates on the city's record that each individual property was at some time in the past authorized for 6 dwelling units, but the same exact page that we print out for every hearing shows 3 for each property. I'm trying to reconcile how the exact same document from the same database shows 2 very different things.
Because I spoke with the zoning office in full disclosure of my thinking about the property and pointed out their error to them, or the situation of it being different than what the record they had provided to me earlier.
So your testimony is that the report that we printed out today was amended after you pointed out that someone had drew your attention to the fact that there was a mistake online?
A difference, a discrepancy relative to a paper record of an inspection and the record prior to my purchase. That's correct.
And would your testimony be that you would not have entertained purchasing these properties if you weren't able to make them 6 units each?
No.
Okay.
I would have still loved to be an owner in the area and to investigate possibilities for the property.
But the inspection that you just testified to indicating more dwelling units, what type of inspection was that?
No, there were 2 separate events. One was a record of the, what type of inspection? I think it was a multifamily dwelling inspection. I can't speak to with certainty.
Because a multifamily, and this is where I'm going with this, a multifamily dwelling inspection, it doesn't consult zoning. They don't even touch the zoning. They go in, they see bathrooms, kitchens, bedrooms, so that a multifamily dwelling inspection, this has come up with the board before, could have authorized 20 dwelling units, and it would have never gone through zoning, and they would have never
As I
said
said, I can't speak to discrepancy, only that Charles Lee pointed out a paper record that he had from a prior inspection that stated a different number of units, and that's where he made the recommendation that I approach the board rather than proceed under the understanding of having 6 units. And I didn't know that they had amended the record, but perhaps they have amended the record to a different.
And when did they amend the record, if you know?
I do not know.
I mean, was this like 6 months ago, or was
No,
this last week?
this would be within the last 8 weeks, I would say.
Okay. Because the printout that we have showing 3 dwelling units per property was printed out on September 16th.
Okay.
So a month ago or so. Just find that very odd. Question?
Tell me, if you could, what's the impetus for the number of additional units that you'd like to have? Why that many?
One would be, I think that Baltimore needs, as I said, to strengthen the areas that are most appealing. I think having more people and diversity of people. Some of the applicants that I have not yet rented the units, though I have marketed them. I've had a employee of the Smithsonian Institute. I've had a firefighter. I've had a community member come over to tour the units by finding them attractive. A great diversity, people moving and working outside of the city of Baltimore are coming down and looking at these units. So part of it is to add vibrancy and things that will improve the area and make it a better place to live for everybody. There's certainly a financial incentive also attached that if we were to add more units and justify costs invested in the property, and not every property on this street has money invested in it, I should note, would be a part of it as well. I have been active in Baltimore for about 5 years now on a scale that pretty much maps to this project, and I have ambition and hope to do much more to make this city the best place that it can be. And this is a step towards that on behalf of my vision of what can make Baltimore better.
Do you currently hold title to the property?
Yes, sir.
And when did you acquire title?
September 23rd.
As in last month, September 23rd?
Yes.
But if this is the printout from September 16th, and it shows 3 dwelling units, how did you rely on a later change to 6 dwelling units when you purchased the property?
Probably entered the contract long before the deed, the signing of actual closing.
We had a study period for 10 days starting from maybe September 6th. I don't remember the name. It might have been close to September 6th, but I certainly called the zoning office to address the question during the course of that study period. I'm not sure in exactitude when they revised the date relative to our study period.
Given how many multiple statements I think you've made against interest, I cannot question your veracity at this point. I'm sure you're telling the truth.
I am.
Okay. All right, any more questions of the applicant? Is there anything else you'd like to add right now at this point?
Can I ask a question on behalf of us?
Of course.
I just want to understand. My name's Mary Pat Clark. We haven't met, but you've met. But yes, I know. And thank you for that. And thank you for your, high hopes for Baltimore. I share them. I just wanted to ask you this one question because I didn't want to get lost in the shuffle. You are not claiming that you are in a hardship position because of thinking all the way through, getting loans and everything else, that you were buying properties that each had 6 units in them. Are you?
I am because of
You are saying that is your hardship.
That is a part of my hardship, as well as new construction is more difficult than construction over an existing.
Well, but but I presume you're rehabbing you're not changing the footprint, I don't think, are you?
No.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, turn to the opposition, and
Guys.
obviously there are a number of you here.
No, I'm going to speak. Yeah, we only, yeah, we
I'm
just
gonna
want to
be your
hear.
spokesperson.
Okay. And note this, we don't,
Two of us.
height is not something you should waste time addressing. Focus on the density arguments.
Okay, not the height? Why is that?
What is your name first?
Oh, yeah, I'm Julia Pearson, and I am the president of the Roldan Association, and Kerr Houston, my next-door neighbor, he and I are going to speak for everyone. Julia Pearson, P-I-E-R.
I'm going to let you
Okay.
handle this.
Sure. So you could build the 35 feet in this neighborhood by right.
Correct.
So the appeal, from a pure height perspective, there's no height variance requested under this application. So that's why board member Strachan just kind of was trying to
Got it.
direct
Just trying to streamline it. The
Yes.
density issue is and I'm not, I think I can speak for all the members, we're not as interested about hearing about parking. If you want to talk about the hardship, why it's not a hardship, or why it's not a unique property, those are the things that would be interesting to, I think, all of us.
Agreed, sure.
Okay, so first of all, Roldan is the neighborhood. We're not Roland Park, we're not Hamden, we're in between the two. It's that just 3 blocks. We're a small community.
I always heard ham roll, so.
Okay, well, okay, but we're incorporated as Roldan, and, if someone wants to change it, they can do that work. So we have, and we also have someone here from Roland Park Civically. Again, Host Heights couldn't be here. There are neighbor organizations. So Roldan is just 3 blocks long, and we get together around things that are important to us. And in this situation, there was a lot of interest in this, from the number of letters and the number of people. We had 13 people here earlier. You can tell that people are were very passionate about this. So around the density issue, so actually I want to start with the parking issue, even though you said don't talk about the parking. Well, let me just say, I live next door to the property. We share the driveway with the property. So it is zoned for 6 cars. There may be surface where you could fit 10 cars or 8 cars, but it is zoned for 6. And what we're concerned about is the number of people, of cars, 12 cars in the back. in that space that we would have to share the driveways with. It's really tight getting out of those driveways. You have to kind of go out and look to the south, and it's very difficult to get out of the driveways in the neighborhood. And we're lucky to have back parking, but we do have to share all that in the back, and we have to and in density, we have to share the back with, instead of 12 families, we'd be sharing with, instead of 6, we'd be sharing with 12, and it's not big enough for 12 families or 12 individuals to be in the back. We have our houses next door are single-family 5-bedroom houses. We have families there, and we wanted families to be comfortable there, and we felt like with 12 apartments and that density, that it's going to be difficult to attract families with children to our houses, which we can't change because it's R5. It'll always be 5-bedroom houses. Around the character of the property, I know you said don't worry about the density, but one of the proposals...
Don't worry about the...
Oh, don't worry about the...
Let me just say this so you don't... I don't want you to waste your... I want you to focus your valuable time on the right issues and hear my words, because they're the right ones. We can't grant... We are not... This board won't consider a variance unless he meets the burden of showing that there was a hardship
Right.
That warrants increasing the density, or that the property is so unique it requires increasing the density. So those are the issues in play.
Right. Would you like to answer? You want to answer?
Think about it while I just...
You go ahead, Mary
Let
Beth.
me
Go, you
go
do it.
while you all... Not that I have the answer to your question, but I know at least...
It's not
What?
your first rodeo, Councilwoman. Really?
It's not, and I've hit the ground many times in this very arena. Members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I actually, I summarized my letter, you'll be happy to know, and if I may just read what I summarized, I'd be grateful. As you know, variance approval requires this honorable board to make certain specific findings before any vote to approve all or part of the applicant's appeals. Appeals to exceed or fall short of the bulk, yard setback, parking, and impervious surface requirements, in this case of Roldan's R5 neighborhood. Let me just add here, this neighborhood became R5 on June 7th, 2017. That is the date that the new zoning code was adopted. And in the previous 2 years for that, we rezoned the entire Roldan community from R6 to R5, well-publicized, put online, public hearings. So there was plenty of opportunity for people to know 2 years in advance even that this whole community was now R5, which has a very different minimum size of units, is the biggest difference of all, bulk. For Roldan Neighborhood Association, that R5 has been a hard one to secure, and a welcome reduction from the denser R6. Thankfully, the transform rezoning process finally conformed Roldan properties to the neighborhood's actual bulk, unit square footage, and yard setback characteristics. The current appeals are Roldan's first challenge to preserving its legal R5 balance as a zoning code category meant to accommodate various housing types, including multifamily developments of a modest density. We would argue, therefore, that seeking to double existing units from 6 to 12 exceeds moderate density, and argue against any inaccurate finding that the zoning code is at fault for that. Required findings. To grant variances, board must find that unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty has occurred for the applicant because of surrounding shapes, topography, or of the land or structures involved. Such a finding would be the gateway to other variance approvals, as mentioned, and is distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the zoning law were strictly enforced. Fact is that 4101 and 4103 Roland Avenue each contain apartment units of various sizes and have operated as rental housing units until very recently and for as long as memory serves. No hardship or difficulty exists to prevent the owner from leasing the units already in place. Excuse me, I'm almost done. Which brings us to a key finding that the board must also confirm that the variances are not based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or income potential of the properties. Fact is that, while perhaps not the exclusive reason, are the variances which, fact is that, while perhaps not the exclusive reason, the variances which lead to doubling the number of units is primarily to increase the value and potential income of these properties. I believe this has been discussed in meetings I was not at, so it's hearsay, but it's not ever going to be the exclusive reason for anything, but the major reason, I think, is pretty clear. The board must also make a finding that the variance will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity. You have already heard from President Julia Pearson about the traffic issues. They come under that category of findings, as you've already heard, and I will not repeat. Enabling the doubling of dwelling units and converting all apartments to one-bedrooms is not a favorable balance between the overpopulation variances would create and protections the B5 zoning district ensures by law. In other words, we're looking for balance. We're talking about by right. Balance is don't overdo it, don't populate this space by doubling it. Go by right. There are units available without any zoning board or council approval. We request that you vote no on these unsubstantial, I'm having a hard time today, unsubstantiated findings. At least I spelled it right, I think. In fairness and balance, let's sensitive by right expansion serve the owner's purposes entirely. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Is there anything she said that she didn't say that you'd like to say? Because I think she did a really nice job.
She did.
Of packaging the issues for you guys.
Say it well.
I thought you said it very well.
Understood it very clearly.
Yes, exactly.
I just want to say two things. One is that we heard about the zoning appeal before the property closed, so we know that this process was in play for a while, and there was an opportunity not to move forward if you thought the units, there weren't really 12 units in the building. Well, you knew there weren't 12 units, but that 12 were allowed. We did have a conversation with, we had really good conversation. I think we're going to be really friendly, good neighbors together. I'm looking forward to you being a neighbor. But, the issue of income for the property, increasing income for the property did come out in that conversation. And the other thing, we talked about this, he can do 5 units in that one building as a matter of right. But when you look at the drawing, essentially, there's a drawing that shows just that building being built up to the 3rd floor, which can be as a matter of right, but would be so out of character and so bad for that building and for the future of that building that I hope that that's not how you decide to move forward, because if you want to fit more units in that building, building up just to that side will just really have an impact on the neighbor character and the character of those 2 houses together. So I wanted to say that.
That's really helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Kerr, you want to say something else?
My name is Kerr Houston. The first name is Kerr. Houston, thanks for your time. I know it's been a long afternoon. Just a first observation, I think the census figures you gave were from 2010, is that right?
No, they're from 2017.
From 2017.
Estimates from 2017.
Okay, is the construction of the rotunda and its occupation have substantially changed the neighborhood in a number of ways, diversifying it arguably as well. I appreciate your honesty too in saying that you would have bought the property regardless, whether it was zoned for 3 units or 6 units on each side. That's helpful and fair, I think. And I think that you were looking for a middle ground. I think that we're certainly amenable to William exercising his right to construct 2 additional units to make a total of 8. But 12 seems excessive to us as a neighborhood for the reasons stated. Thanks.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Sir, that's it for the opposition. You have the last word.
I have very little further to add other than I would enjoy a constructive relationship between everybody in the community and to make it a better place. That I would prefer that you not make assumptions about my intentions for the property or my motivations, as you stated several times in your presentation there. I think this is an area that leads to a meeting of a higher density area just to the south of it and a lower density area just to the north. I do think it's a great area for Baltimore in general. It's in a wonderful school district. I have no interest in anything detrimental to the overall character of the community. And I would, if there were a middle ground and if there were stated priorities that the community wanted to accomplish in encouraging people to invest in its community, I would love to hear them, but still to this moment have not heard them. From an architectural perspective, I agree. I would love to promote balance in the property, but that a bit depends on what tools I have to work with in doing that. But thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. No, ma'am.
I'm not going to argue with the gentleman, but I would like to explain to him that the reason the terms unnecessary hardship and practical difficulty and whether financial interests are predominant is because it's part of the findings, it's part of what has to be tested in a variance before this board. So it wasn't anything personal. It was just language of the law.
Very good.
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Oh, really?
Okay.
May I say one more thing?
You may not.
But she could.
You can say it does.
We're done. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Calling the final case on the regular docket, 2019-359, 4023 Pulaski Highway. Josh Atkins to construct new side and rear additions and use as medical office for physical therapy.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir? Okay.
Good, how are you?
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Do you have any staff reports?
Which one are we on? No.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted this particular property is zoned I-2 industrial. In this industrial zoning district, offices are listed as a conditional use only if they are secondary to a primary industrial use, and otherwise are not allowed unless legally established before the effective date of the zoning code on June the 5th of 2017. The record available to the Planning Department showed that this property was last authorized for use as a commercial school, which is a conditional use in the I-2 district. But the property does not have a current record of an established primary industrial use, which the applicant would need to demonstrate to the board in order for the board to be able to consider approving the application. The department therefore recommends disapproval of the application because offices are not permitted as a use in the I-2 zoning district where the property is located. If the applicant provides evidence that this property has a primary industrial use, the department would have no objection to the application if it is also determined that the offices would be secondary to that primary industrial use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Atkins, having heard from planning, what can you tell us about the primary industrial use?
It's going to be a therapy office. It's going to be about, it's going to be 3 employees, no more than 8 patients at a time. It's just some chiropractors in there. Excuse me. There's some parking in the back, up to 7 spaces, I believe. The hours will be from 10 to 6. We're not changing the zoning or anything. We just need the approval for the use to have a doctor's office there. It's not technically a doctor's office. There's no medical, procedures or housing of patients. It's just there's there's no drop-down box in the city system for therapy when you,
Are they
for
there
permit
right now?
uses. No. As of right now, currently, there is, it's a two-story, a vacant dwelling right now. And it's got a chain link fence all the way around it. There's a CMU half wall on the left side of the building. And then the right side of the building has the driveway access with curb apron and everything from Pulaski Highway.
But the chiropractors would be performing chiropractic services in the building.
Yes, inside the building, yes.
And a chiropractor is a medical doctor, correct?
He is.
They are.
Yes.
That's a medical doctor, really?
Yeah.
Doctors of chiropractic, not technically a MD.
Yeah, it's not correct.
Okay.
But that practice is there operating right now?
No, sir.
Okay, it's not.
No, it's a vacant building right now.
Okay.
So we intend to take it, excuse me, I have a speech problem. So we intend to take it down. We got to get a raising permit and build it back up with a nice brick front. Across the street is a Dunkin' Donuts. There's a Burger King and all right there. It's just, therapy, so even we talked to a few of the neighbors on North Haven right there. We talked to them a few weeks ago. They had no objections.
Do you have any knowledge or evidence to show that it was used as an office prior?
I believe what it was used for before was a parking lot for old cars is all I know of.
The permit history with this property has some kind of driving school in there, at least as of 2014. Do you know anything about that?
No, sir.
Okay. When was it last occupied for use, if you know?
I do not know. But the neighbors have told me it's been sitting for a few years and all. So it's going to be good for the community, to do this. This would be actually the fourth office that I will be building.
Gotcha.
There's one on Washington Boulevard, Hartford Road. There's another one on Park Heights Avenue as well. So they are a successful business.
Well, I don't doubt that they are in the right zoning location. But here, and we heard from Mr. French, who indicated that you could put such an office there if it's basically attached to a primary industrial use. It's sort of connected somehow. And
Okay.
you're kind of building it from scratch here, right?
I'm still keeping the same footprint. It's just the building is not, it's not structurally safe.
When I say from scratch, you're creating a new business.
Yes, correct.
And so we don't have an anchored primary industrial use to which we can attach this use of the physical therapy office.
Okay.
And I think that's what I think we're bound by under the I-2 zoning district. That's what has to be demonstrated in order for us to.
So the code has a weird wrinkle, Mr. Chairman, you're correct, so an I-2 zoning district is heavy commercial, and there's not a whole lot of those left in the city. The zoning code has a weird wrinkle in it that it allows something like an office use in an I-2 district, but it has to be secondary to a primary industrial use. So say, for example, that building had a contractor in it, and the rear of the property was used as a contractor storage yard. And then as a secondary use, doesn't have to be accessory, but as a secondary, smaller use, they could have like a or like an office use.
Okay.
The only other exception to that is if that it had an office use in it prior to June 5th, 2017, that it kept up that office use and that you could switch the tenant over to a new office use. So that's the only kind of exception in the code for that. Unfortunately, it's a very narrow exception, and it's for the board to decide if the use as you describe it meets that code requirement or not.
Okay, I understand.
Just a question for the director. Mr. Baumgartner.
Yeah.
If there were evidence of the use of the building prior to its vacancy, does the vacancy change the
Yeah, there were a few.
requirement?
Probably, yes. So the code language says, office use legally established as of the effective date of this code, which is June 5th, 2017, are deemed conforming and are not required to be secondary to a primary industrial use. So it doesn't say expressly, but I think inherent in that language is that, you know, if you were in office, you've always been in office, you can continue to be in office without being a non-conforming office in an I-2 district. But that once it goes vacant, once they've removed any structures, once they've, you know, ceased operation, that's where I was trying to go with, to see if that commercial, if that driving school could somehow be an office, and then if they were still,
If that was all before, you said June 15th.
Correct.
then I could
June
probably
15th.
be like grandfathered in of some sort.
Something like
So I need to
that,
find that information out and then probably come back for a hearing and show that.
Well, that would be helpful, but I mean, if the property's been empty for an extended period of time, that means that that door is probably closed, unfortunately.
So that time's out even if there was an office in there before June 5th of 2017?
Most likely.
Yeah, the abandonment or the vacancy
Correct.
period of time kind of puts it now in another category, as opposed
Okay.
to continuing in office use. Basically starts anew, you know, there's nothing to be
Okay.
grandfathered in. And so it's a circumstance where that zoning district is very draconian in terms of what it is you can do in that location, that specific location. Wonderful idea to build the property.
Yeah, it's a perfect location for us.
And that's the rub there, you know, it's the perfect location for that, but for the zoning.
Okay.
Now, if you could find a primary industrial use, right, if there's another
where the
tenant out
parking lot
there,
is, yeah.
then that would fulfill the code's requirement.
What type
and
of
then you can,
documentation does that require?
finding another business to go there.
Okay.
So, you know.
So contractor, as you said.
Yep, or something like that, and then, you know, some kind of agreement to go in that space, some kind of lease.
Okay.
Correct. It would have to be, again, an industrial use, and I would reach out to perhaps the planning department to talk to the community planner about what the range of industrial uses might be. I think that might be helpful. And then it would be something that the board could approve, as long as the main primary use would be some kind of industrial use.
Because there is a
And
big
then-
parking lot on the back with a driveway.
Yeah, and there's a
So-
there's a big open area. But yeah, I mean, we can't offer much more guidance beyond that.
No, that's helpful. That's fine. I appreciate it.
And that's also not something we would, you know, leave open to find, for him to find more evidence and come back to on this application. That would be a new application.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, I understand.
Great. All right, sir. Well,
Sounds
thank
like
you.
you have a successful business in a lot of other locations, and good for
I do.
you.
Yes.
Good
All right, guys,
work,
thank you
good
so much
work.
for your time.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, thanks for your presentation.
And Mr. Chairman, we do have the applicant for case 360 who is here.
Oh, okay.
We called it the very beginning.
Right, right.
Correct. It was on the board's consent agenda.
Yeah, we were concerned that you were waiving that consent there, so let's go back and we'll call it case number 2019-360, 1701 Marshall Street, Josh Resnick.
Andre Stone, actually.
Okay, sir.
Yes. ANDRESTONE.
All right.
You swear, ma'am?
Yes,
Raise your
we're
right
ready.
hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and Mr. Stone, this is a request to construct a two-story rear addition and a new third floor, correct?
Correct.
All right. Were there any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Mr. Stone, is there anything you'd like to add to the application?
It's an end of group row house on a narrow alley street in South Baltimore. There's no roof currently. There's no change in lot coverage proposed. It's just the additional height, which there are 3 other houses on the street that already have done exactly the same addition in recent years. The total height would be 31 feet above grade, which is below the maximum height limit, I believe.
Okay.
And this would just make it a property that somebody might want to live in. SStat shows the current developed square footage is 840 square feet, which is pretty tight. So,
Okay. All right, well, fortunately, the board having received your application, believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. I think you're good.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging around.
Yeah, just one question while we're on the record. Oh, okay, well, that's fine, because we still had we had the no-show for 2019-350, 102 East 20th Street. Nobody posted for that, I guess.
Correct.
All right, that's it. Sorry, I just wrote on you.